Let me tell you a story. So relax, sit back, and beer up while Ben plays the intro. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It's Jose here, welcoming you to not quite another episode of Amazing Worlds, but a little, maybe averagely long nostalgia trip back in time. This video had been going on in my head, or the idea for it, for a while, but I wasn't sure what to do, how to do it, and then, shout out, Baron from Your Mind on Books did something very, very similar to what I had in mind. So here I am. I'm here to tell you the books of my youth, how I fell into reading, and what my story is and my love for books. So I suppose we're going to start right from the beginning. So as a child, I suppose, like every child, I had to be entertained. My parents had to keep me busy, whatever. So if you are to believe my mum, I was a little bit annoying until I learned how to read. From that moment on, she says, I was just left to my own devices. So my mum used to buy me these books. It was a collection called El Barco de Vapor, so the steamboat. And it was the first collection of books aimed at children. It was first published in 1978, and they were color-coded. So they started, I think it was white, and then blue, and then red, and then orange, something like that. But anyway, so I started devouring those books, and then my mum realized that she just didn't have the money to keep me entertained that way. So that's when I got my library card. And the first book I took from the library with my library card was The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien, and the rest is history. And I've got it sitting on my shelf. So here is a copy in English, and then a little bit out of shot is my copy in Spanish, which is one of the books that I've read many, many, many times. But I suppose maybe around that time or before that, so comics was my big way into reading. And I don't mean comics, Batman, Superman, DC, Marvel, no. So back in the day, a long time ago, every newspaper in Spain, or at least the major newspapers, on Sundays you had the Sunday Supplement. And the Sunday Supplement had the TV listings for the week ahead, because there was no internet at the time, and effectively we only had 2 channels in Spain in the 80s, so it wasn't difficult. You had the crossword supplement, the word search, all that kind of stuff that my grandfather used to do. And there was the kids supplement, and in there you had comic strips, and you had maybe 4 pages of comics for kids that were being serialized, and then you could later buy the paperback when it came out, but you had the opportunity to do a preview there. So these are comics no one outside of Spain would know, but they were very, very hugely popular. Every person of my generation has read them. Mortadelo Filemón, Super López, El Mot, and then later on, as an adult, I sort of bought some of them, or because of the nostalgia is strong, I've bought the collected editions. And I remember my grandmother had her political ideas, and she would only buy the newspaper that sort of agreed with her vision of the world. But I would nag her to please buy on Sunday, just buy, Grandma, please buy this other newspaper so I could get their supplement and have a bit more comics to read. And as well, I remember we used to go to my grandparents for lunch every Sunday, and I would sneak into my uncle's room. I think my uncles had left home by then. They were at university or different places, and he had quite a few Tintins, a few Asterix. And if you haven't done so, you can check out my review of the Asterix and the Tintin series. I'll leave all the links in the description below. But after lunch, everyone will have their siesta, and I would just sneak out, get those comics, and sit next to my grandmother reading them. I guess I miss my grandparents a lot. I used to spend a lot of time with them, and they were a very influential part of my life when I was growing up. Partly because, next part of the books of my youth, as a child, I used to spend all my summers with them. The summer holidays in Spain are quite long, so they start on the 22nd of June, and you go back to school back in the day, on the 15th of September. It's almost a 3-month holiday. But we were lucky enough that my parents and my grandparents co-own a flat on the beach. So as soon as the holidays were up, my parents will drive us down to this apartment, and we would spend the whole summer with my grandparents. And it was in that flat where we, in the living room, we had these big wooden sort of, not quite shelves because it has some drawers and stuff, but it's this big wooden piece of furniture that will become quite important for later on in the video, just bear with. And in there were all these paperbacks. I never read them, never read any of them. I remember them very much. With all these weird names that summer after summer, day after day, I would see. William Faulkner, Perilous Back, Vicky Baum. And what they were, it was a collection published in the 60s. I think it was a Colección Reno, the Reno collection, Reindeer collection, or something like that. It was like 240 books of classics, but anything from Arthur C. Clarke to like I said, Faulkner, you could find there. And there were these paperbacks, and they were kind of little brick-sized. They had this weird, very rough paper texture. They were orangey because they were in a very humid place on the beach. They were 20, 30 years old, and a couple of weeks ago, I went to a friend's house who belonged to his grandparents. So he's a couple of years older than me. And in his grandparents' house, there were books from this collection. So I guess everyone in Spain in the 60s was buying them. And actually, you can still see them on eBay. People are selling them sort of by the handful. Here you go. So I may buy some of them just for the nostalgia bit, I suppose. And then sort of around the time as well, one of my grandfather's sisters passed away. And he brought home a big collection of Agatha Christie and Perry Mason novels. Now, I devoured those because my grandmother was very strict. Traditional Spanish grandmother, born in the 30s, survived the Spanish Civil War, Second World War, so, very traditional. And in summer in Spain, after lunch, people sleep siesta. And you were not allowed to go into anyone else's house and disturb their siesta time, in the same way that no one was allowed to come into our house and disturb our siesta time. So after lunch, we were not allowed to leave the house until 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So I would pick these Perry Mason, Agatha Christie novels, go back to my bunk bed, and just read them every afternoon after lunch, every day, and read them over the summer. There were a lot of them. I really, really enjoyed those. Now, what happened was, we had this big wooden table in the living room of the flat because my parents, my sister, myself, my grandparents, whichever one of my uncles and aunts were around, we would all have our meals together. A big table, it had like a wooden frame and metal frame and wooden legs and all this stuff. Then one day we found these tiny little holes in them. Turns out the table had caught woodworm. So my grandmother bought the liquid to squirt into it with a syringe, and that was my job every morning, go and squirt this liquid into all the tiny holes. And we never got rid of it. And then the woodworm passed on to this big wooden piece of furniture that I mentioned before, where all these paperbacks were. And it came to a point where they just went everywhere, and we had to basically get rid of every wooden piece of furniture because everything was infested with woodworm. What I didn't know is that woodworm could attack books as well. So all these paperbacks, all these wonderful paperbacks from my youth, got infested. Like you would open the pages and you could see little holes going through the pages. The woodworm was eating the books. So we had to get rid of all of them. And you know, all those Agatha Christie, Perry Mason novels, never to be seen again, just chucked in the bin. Tragedy. Some other books of my youth that I really enjoyed, and again, this is, I don't know. It's this one's here. I still got some of them. This was a little collection called Solve the Mystery, in English, were American. There were 14 of them published. I think I went to the Wikipedia page to check, right? A collection of 14 or 17. So why in Spain there were 40 published? Go figure. Well, let me tell you. So these books follow the stories of two kids who live in this village called Lakewood Hills, somewhere in the US. And every book came with a little sort of accordion map of the town, so you could figure out where they were and where they were going. And these two kids will help the local sheriff solve mysteries around town. And every chapter was a little mystery, and at the end of every chapter there was a picture. And within the picture was a hidden clue in order to solve the mystery. And you had the question, can you solve the mystery? And if you couldn't, the answers were at the back of the book. But they were printed backwards. So you either had to hold the book against the light to read through, or in front of a mirror, or have a little mirror and read it. And they were great. They were absolutely, I loved them. I loved them, I really did. Similar to this, where I'm sure everyone has read these, the Choose Your Own Adventure books, the ones where you take decisions, decide where you want to go, and then you jump pages or sections. More often than not, you end up dead, and then you backtrack and change your decision and try to make your way to the good ending of the book. And now that my oldest son is learning to read, we're using these to read at home. So I can't believe I still got these. And you know, they're fairly good condition. I don't know if they're going to survive my son, but they're here. So yeah, these are my first reading memories. These are the books of my youth. I would like to thank Baron for giving me the oomph to record this video, and I'm hoping that anyone seeing this will do something similar and share your stories as to how you got into reading and what you used to read as a kid. I would like to thank everyone for watching, for sticking to the end of the video. As usual, I would like you to take loads and loads of care and stay tuned, because next video I will be reviewing The Realm of the Elderlings saga by Robin Hobb, which I finished earlier this morning. So that'll be the next video coming up next weekend. Until then, take lots of care. Bye.